My name is Todd Giannattasio, founder of Tresnick Media, and if you want to learn to define your best life and have the courage to live it, you should be listening to the More Than Corporate podcast with my good friend, Amber Furman.
Welcome to the More Than Corporate podcast, where we discuss finding fulfillment, defining success, and living your best life. There's no roadmap to success, no one-size-fits-all answer to fulfillment. I believe it requires us all to be vulnerable and authentic about what we want to accomplish and have the courage to step out of our comfort zone to chase our dreams. Keep listening to hear stories from inspiring people who make it their mission to live their best life every day. Welcome back to another episode of the More Than Corporate podcast. I am so excited to be here with Todd Giannattasio. We are at the PodMax event, and I talk about this event so much, but I love the connections that I get to make, and I'm so excited to dig into this interview with Todd. Todd is a veteran marketing expert who's been featured by Entrepreneur, Forbes, and Huffington Post for his proven system to grow brands, generate leads, and increase sales in our constantly evolving digital world. His combination of fundamental principles and modern marketing strategies are what create a force multiplier for businesses. He is certified in sales and marketing from digitalmarketer.com, Hubspot, and the Jordan Belfort straight line sales and persuasion system. He has been featured as a speaker at Propelify Innovation Festival, presenting to a combined audience of over 24,000 attendees. Todd has been working in digital communications and marketing since 2003. Over that time, he's worked with some of the biggest companies in the world, from Universal Records to BASF, and with growing startups and small businesses. He is currently the founder of Tresnick Media and co-founder CMO of Zyotag. I'm super excited to dig into this interview with Todd. Really quickly, before we jump into this episode is brought to you by Success Development Solutions and the Define Your Life Mastermind. If you or someone you know has ever said the words, "I'll be happy when," I just need to insert whatever you think is going to make you happy here. Losing weight, working hard, building my career, and then I'll be happy. If you've ever felt like you've done everything you're supposed to do, yet life isn't turning out the way you expected. If it seems like something is missing despite others telling you how successful you are, then the Define Your Life Mastermind is for you. The most powerful question anybody ever asked me is, what does success mean to you? And as I've explored this topic on my podcast and with my coaching clients, it's become clear that most people don't ask and answer this question enough. The Define Your Life Mastermind is designed to help you get clear on what success means, what a well-rounded life looks like, and what your best life feels like. Once you know that, you can build a business that fits into the life that you want and surround yourself with people who give you the courage to step out of your comfort zone to live this vision. If this sounds like something that you or someone you know needs in their life, head over to defineyourlife.morethancorporate.com for more information and to schedule a call to see if we're a good fit to work together. I'm super excited to connect with you and help you reach your goals. With that being said, let's dig into this interview with Todd. Todd, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Your show really aligns with kind of how my journey started and with the kind of people that I love helping. And so, I'm really honored and grateful to be a guest here and grateful to the PodMax team for hooking us up as a pair.
Yeah, they do such a fantastic job with connections. I'm always blown away because I always get such great interviews, and it usually ends up turning into follow-up interviews because, we have a limited time here and there's just so much more I want to get into. Let's go back a little bit. One of my favorite questions to start off with and to ask people is, I think it's so interesting to think of what you thought your life was going to look like when you were kind of planning your stuff out, high school age. We all had this idea of what life was going to be. And it's normally nothing like what it is. So for you, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was that vision you had?
Man, going back, I never really knew exactly. I always went through every year was something different, whatever I was kind of playing with at the time. Right. I randomly ended up being a correspondent on a TV show when I was in high school. And so there was a time where I was I wanted to be a TV host when I grew up. That's what I kind of thought. And so I went to college for communications. And so in the first semester I took there was like a journalism or course or something along those lines. And so that summer I got a job freelancing for a local newspaper, and I was like, oh, I want to be a writer. And then that the newspaper said, well, we need someone who can take pictures of the stuff you're going to cover. So then I took a photography class and wanted to be a photographer. And then this was in like the early 2000s. So one part of communications was taking a 3D design course, because that was like brand new at the time, and took one of those. And I was like, oh, I want to work at Pixar and do this stuff, right? And so my last semester, I ended up in web design classes and getting my certification in web design, which led me to then, when I graduated, that was like the next step was, okay, I guess web design is the job that I'm looking for. And that's where I started working. I worked for a few months freelancing at Universal Records, and then ended up at BASF, giant corporate behemoth, which we can kind of get into that whole transition period. But so one, I was always kind of like trying to figure out what was next, and never really had that one, like I didn't say like, oh, there was one specific thing I wanted to be. I just knew it always was, I never felt right in a 9 to 5 situation, and I know this sounds terrible, but like the obligation of being somewhere specifically all the time. Like, even growing up, I played all sports and everything like that. But when I played football, it was like every day after school was from whatever 3:30 to 5 or whatever the time was. And I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to last in this more. And I played for like 2 years or something. And I was like, I just didn't want to have to be somewhere every day for this period of time. Right. And so those kind of things, like always inside. And remember, going back, entrepreneurship today is totally different in the world. It didn't exist in the 90s and early 2000s like it does today. And so I always knew it was something different, right? But, I graduated school, got a corporate job for, the usual reasons. My dad wanted me to. I didn't really know, like, back then it wasn't like a clear path, like, oh, you can start a business and do something. And not that when you're 18 or when you're 21, that's probably not what you should do anyway. But, it just, you graduate college, you do this, and you get into the rut, right? And then it's just a matter of like, how long do you stay in that rut for before you pop your head up? I gave it a shot, and it was okay. It wasn't terrible, but it never felt right. Like I always knew there had to be something else for me to do with my life, where, working in a corporate gig, like in a huge, huge company, you do stuff and it goes out into a black hole, and you wonder, did this help anyone? Did it help the business at all? Like, you don't know the impact that you're having, right? Like my stuff went to my, the business manager that I was working with, who then worked with the business manager of the other department, who then passed it along to the VP of the next department, who then sent it out to the division over here, which then went, and who knows if anything I did ever mattered, right? I didn't like that, and so time came, and we can get into that story. But I love now working, one, in my own business and my own startups, and with clients who, when you do something, it makes an impact, right? Like when I put my foot on the pedal, the car is going to go. Like I love having that control myself, and I love having that impact and giving that control to other people. And so, that it never, circling back to the question, like, what did I want to be when I grew up? I didn't know. I didn't have my finger on exactly what it was, but I knew there just wasn't something right about this. Go sit in a cubicle from 9 to 5 and then leave. It just, that never settled well. Even when things were okay, it just never felt like it was for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm giggling a little bit because it's like you were reading my mind, because I wrote down when you were talking about not feeling right in a 9 to 5 situation, and your football story of like, I just don't want to be told where to be every single day. I wrote down control, like being able to take control of what your day is. And I tell people this all the time. I work more as an entrepreneur than I have ever worked ever in my life.
For sure.
But I get to decide when that is. And so my friends and family, they're like, are you ever not working? And I'm like, I'm not working when I don't want to work.
Yeah.
And then I'm working all the rest of the time. Like
Yeah. And also you're doing stuff that you enjoy doing, like,
yeah,
my dad, who actually just got a great retirement package, but he's been in corporate his whole life, same company since before I was born, like couldn't be more corporate guy. And to him, if he's got to work on the weekends or at night, that really sucks, because
yeah,
his job is his job. But I actually love the stuff I do. So like my wife she's a teacher, but she has an online business too, and she loves doing that kind of stuff. And so like when we put the kids to bed, like at night, like we both take out our laptops when we're our hanging out is being on our laptops, because we love doing that stuff. Like we like to, be creating and helping and whatever. So like, it is, yeah, way more work, but it's also stuff that you like to do. You get to choose to do it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you said that, because I grew up in the restaurant industry. My grandma owned a restaurant, and then I worked my way through school, serving and bartending, and then I
Yeah.
bartended through law school. And I love the restaurant industry. I love everything about it. And there's been many times that I've thought about getting back into it. And then I think, man, I refuse to give up my nights and weekends for anybody.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I don't have my nights and weekends I spend working now anyways, but it's mine, right? It's
Right.
my work.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
I wake up and say, you know what, like I just can't do everything that's on my calendar today. Like actually none of it's getting done. Instead, it's going to be a Netflix and chill kind of day, and I'm going to eat a pint of ice cream, and that's okay. Then that happens. Like I don't have anybody else to answer to, and then you just fill up that time somewhere else. And I think that that's where that control thing comes in. Like we are all, human nature is to fight for that control. Like we all want it so much.
Yeah.
And then we give it away in the biggest part of our life, which is our career. And it's so crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always, once it gets started, I have friends who ended up in, not that they're entrepreneurs now, but they were in the wrong career, but it was after my next bonus.
Yeah.
After I use the banked up vacation days, or, like what, it's always after the next, but then, 5 years go by, and I literally, like my best friend, he ended up quitting his job in finance and investing, and went to Africa for a month. Like he straight up Dave Chappelle'd it. Like he just said, like, he just broke. Like he's just like, I can't do this anymore. And he quit. And he's married too. Like he didn't leave his wife, but his wife stayed home in New Jersey, and he went and lived in Africa at like a rehabilitation center for lions. And he like helped rehabilitate injured lions for a month, and then came back and like got a more lifestyle type of job, whatever, that he really likes now, and he's having a good time, which is great. But like it was just like we graduated college, he got a great job, was making good money. Dude, I can't take it. After February's bonus, like I'm out. February comes, I'm like, hey, you write that resignation letter yet? Like, well, no, I'm working. This project goes on until April. So when this project's done in April, and then that goes on. And then it's like, well, the bonus is almost here again. And it just is, it's a hamster wheel, that's the rat race.
Yeah, no, it is. And, there's a couple of things that are so important about what you said. And number one is like that comfort level that we get, right?
Yep.
Because, and what pushed me into the entrepreneurial space was personal firsthand experiences with how false that comfort level is. Like thinking, and COVID is a perfect example of that, right?
Exactly.
And this was pre-COVID. This was 2017 when I kind of pushed myself into the entrepreneurial space. And it was like something had taken away my belief that I was getting a paycheck every single 2 weeks, no matter what happened. And so I think that people get so comfortable with this idea that they are safer working for someone else without realizing that, again, going back to the control, like you have no control over what that business is doing, where that business is spending their money, and whether they're going to be able to pay you.
Yeah.
So like that really comes to mind, because people think, like you said, the bonus, all of this is coming next. And you kind of get in that comfort zone of living a certain lifestyle, and you wonder whether you'll be able to keep that up somewhere else. One of the craziest memes I ever saw. And like memes are the best and worst thing on the planet
Yeah.
because you're like, I should not be taking inspiration from whoever wrote this. I have no idea who it
Yeah.
was, but that hits me right in the feels.
Yeah.
And one of it said, don't give your peace up because chaos is comfortable. Like
Yeah.
that to me is what this is about. Like you're unhappy, you're unfulfilled, but
Yeah.
it's comfortable to you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you leave and you get into this entrepreneurial space and you feel this weight lifted off your shoulders and you
Yeah.
feel this peace, but it's so uncomfortable that you push it
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, it's scary. Any kind of change is scary. You know,
Yeah.
you don't know what's on the other side of it, but don't get me wrong. It was scary. And I was also foolish after I quit my job with I, pissed my money away very quickly, foolishly and whatever. But it also was like I said, like, I had this feeling inside where it didn't feel comfortable anymore. Like when you wake up, when you get pulled out of the matrix,
Yep.
and and you realize what you just explained, and like even in a huge corporation where like you may think you have job security, you may not, but it just doesn't feel like when you realize, oh my God, I'm not comfortable. I've become comfortable in this thing I hate.
Yeah.
It jars you, right? And so it's almost it's somewhat of an identity shift, maybe that's not the right word exactly, but when the discomfort, when you recognize the situation in your cubicle is not what you had been sleepwalking through,
Yeah.
you realize that the discomfort shifts, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this is not comfortable. I need to move out of here, right? And because that's the only time people change is when you're in pain or when you're in discomfort. That's when you're going to move, and that was kind of the awakening for me. And that's, there's never a great time to take any kind of leap situation, right? But for me, I worked in a big corporation, and the way that you climb the ranks there was they would move you around to a different job, different division, whatever. And like ultimately they're a German company. So like ultimately, if you really wanted to be someone high up, you would have to go and live in Germany for at least a year and work there. And so I reached that point in my mid-20s where it was like next step time. And they flew me down to I'm in New Jersey. They flew me down to North Carolina, and they offered me a job down in the agriculture division down there, running the interactive communications there. And if you move from New Jersey to North Carolina, you don't need a promotion to make a ton more money. Like the cost of living is absurd, right? Like it's a joke. And, I could have, for cheaper than I was paying rent that I was splitting with my friends, could have bought a brand new 3-bedroom condo in the cool part of town down there. And so, they offered me a job to move down there, cover all my moving expenses. It would be a promotion. It would be a big raise. I was in my mid-20s. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, obviously no kids yet. And my friends, my family, my colleagues all were like, wow, this is, if there ever was a perfect time for you to make a move across the country kind of thing, this is it. You're all the reasons I just explained. And it did line up, because it was internal. It did line up with the launch of a huge project we were working on at the time. And so it was like, man, this is going to be great. You wrap up that project and you can take this and transition. And I sat on that and marinated, and the answer was obvious to me, that they were all right. This is the perfect time for me to make a career transition. And then the shocker came to everyone when instead of accepting the position, I handed in my 2-week notice. And it was really exciting. I was lucky too that my boss at the time was already married and had kids that were 10, 12 years old. So he was stuck, right? Like, and he knew he was stuck. But so we launched this huge project. My boss and my boss's boss are sitting at my desk, and it was funny. So it was the new website for US. We launched this site. We've been working on it for months and months. But on my desk, in the manila folder next to my desk where everyone's sitting, was my resignation letter. And so we hit go live on my computer. It goes up, cheers, everybody, and whatever, everyone goes back and settles down. So then I wait like 10 minutes and I tap my boss. I say, hey, you got a minute? Let's go chat. And he's like, yeah. And he got, no problem. Gets up and then he looks down and sees the folder in my hand. And he goes, uh-oh, is this good he goes, is this good or bad? I said, well, it depends on your perspective. So we go and we sit down in like one of the private little conference rooms. And I said, he's sitting there smiling at me. And I say, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for, and he just starts cracking up laughing. He can't, he knows what's coming. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Where are you going? Where are you going to work? And I said, actually, I'm going to start my own company. And then he just really exploded with it. I'm sorry. This is amazing. So I was really lucky and fortunate to have that as my experience, in transitioning out, to have it be very positive like that. So that was cool. But, there's those times where it's like next bonus, next time, like you just have to get to the point where like, okay, this is it. This is the date. Like write up that letter, put the date on it, print it out, like make it real. And worst case scenario for anybody who's in the situation where you feel like this is too scary, like I can't do it, like then just if it doesn't work out, go get another job. Like,
yeah,
like that's it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out. But at least you can say you got the experience of it and you get the taste. And trust me, once you get the taste, you're going to earn, you'll earn to keep the life. Once you get it, if it's for you, but, it's definitely, like I said, once you realize this is not the comfort I want, and there is no perfect time, there's just as perfect as it's going to get. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just said resonates so much, because I was that person that was like, okay, I'm so unhappy, but the bonuses, like I was getting quarterly
Right.
bonuses, and I was like, man, like if it wasn't for these bonuses, I wouldn't be here. And then, shit kind of started to hit the fan. And I remember saying to somebody like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm going to quit practicing law. I'm going to go back to bartending. I'm going to reevaluate my life. It takes those people like your boss that's so excited for you to like give you the belief you can do it. Because I found a connection. It was so crazy. A friend of mine met an attorney at a poker game, and they were looking for an immigration attorney to rent office space for them. And so he's like, hey, call this attorney. I think he's looking for an associate. So I called and I get this person on the phone, and the words that come out of my mouth are, I'm really interested in talking to you, but I'm not interested in working for anybody else. And I'm hearing these words come out of my mouth, and I'm saying like, what are you, like, stop talking, like just stop, like stop. And he's like, cause I've never been an entrepreneur before. And he's like, well, that's good, because we're not looking to hire anybody, but we're looking to rent office space. And they became such good mentors to me. And I was like, I just don't know if I'm going to do it. And I said, I think I'm going to go back to bartending. And they said, what do you have to lose? Like, if you try to do this and it fails, then you're in the same position that you're in now, because you know you're not staying where you're at.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. And then he said to me the biggest piece of advice, which was, you will be shocked how little you have to work to make what somebody else is willing to pay you.
Yeah.
And that to me
true.
was
that's so
huge.
True.
Like,
yeah, that's so true.
If you only want to make a status quo, if money's your issue, you can find something that you can do so much little time and keep all of that money.
And
but
it's amazing. And it's amazing because think about like when you're in a corporate job and you go to the office, you clock in, you do this, you do that all day, and then you get your check. Well, in reality, how much time did you spend creating the outcomes needed? And so when you switch out of that, where like you get paid just to get it done, all of a sudden you're like, wow, the 3 hours I was bullshitting in the office, now I get to grab some ice cream and watch Netflix instead, right? Like, and so you realize like how underperforming is maybe not the right word, but like there's just so much filler in these scenarios where like you go and make a cup of coffee in the kitchen, and Dan comes in, and then you start talking about, and maybe you're even talking about work stuff, but like you just talk for 20 minutes. Well, all those 15, 20 minutes, they add up, and all of a sudden, like, your 40-hour work week in an office is you're really only working like 17 hours. And then all of a sudden when you're home and someone pays you that same amount, but you don't need to give them 40 hours, all of a sudden it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Well, and then you learn, like, and I think this is the most powerful thing is like, we talk to people all the time, and you do so much marketing stuff that I know you'll resonate with this, that you try to pull out with people, okay, what are your strengths? What are you good at? Like, what can we
Yeah.
talk about? And they can't answer that question because the
Yeah.
job that they're in doesn't require them to do that. And
Right. Yeah.
so I have a really good friend of mine who makes merchandise, and she does it as a side hustle. And now she's thinking about leaving the legal field. And she's like, but I don't know what I would do. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know what you would do? Like, I pay you every month to give me crap for my business. And she's like, yeah, but I just do that for fun. It's not a business. And I'm like, the mental blocks that people
Yeah.
have that prevent them
Yeah.
from seeing all the ways that they could survive
Yeah.
is insane. And
Yeah.
so I kind of want to ask you, and this is a little bit more towards what you do than your story,
Sure.
but how do you work with people to pull that out? Because as you're working with them in the marketing
Yeah.
world, that's such an important part, because
sure.
we know that people don't buy what you have, they buy who you are. So
Yeah.
if you can't show a piece of you to the people, there's 9 million other people that do exactly what you do.
Yep.
So how do you help people pull that out for the purposes of what they're focusing on?
So I got a couple tricks up my sleeves over the years, right? But I love what you just said, and that's exactly who I love working with, is directly with entrepreneurs and growing small business owners, because it's about their personality and authenticity that they can share, right? And that's how we help our clients make a difference. Is that it's not a cookie cutter marketing strategy where any immigration attorney can hire us and blueprint and it's all canned out. And I do find that like accounting industry, legal services, there's actually these quote unquote marketing companies who will give you the same exact campaigns, same image, same text, everything. And they just, and there's hundreds or thousands of different attorneys who hire these people and accountants who hire these people. And that drives me nuts. I can't take it. Right. So like what I want to see everyone do is share their story, share their expertise that they're passionate about. And that's also why I love PodMax and guesting on shows and doing my own video series, because it allows you to have these conversations and show off your personality. And that's what resonates with people. Like the same, a lot of people know the same marketing tactics as I do. A lot of people know the same legal things that you know. But when you want to attract clients that you're going to love working with, like it's about having the personalities resonate with each other. And how are you going to connect and really like enjoy being together and collaborating? And so how I help other entrepreneurs do that for their marketing, where we've really transitioned as an agency in the last year, is going away from hire us and we will write your blog posts, or we will create your video content, or we will do whatever, where now we are only working with clients where we can collaborate with them to create their content. And one of the first tricks that I picked up on this years ago was when blogging was really big. This is in like 2014-ish, right? And our approach is always to publish content. Marketing should be helpful, not hypey. And that's how people will find you on Google, social. People want to share your content. It'll attract more people to you, etc. And we're working with a client who was he wasn't retired, but he was approaching 60. And this was kind of he opened up his own gym and training center for the first time. And now, imagine someone in that demographic is not using the computer age-wise, and their business is in the gym. Like they're never on a computer, so they're not savvy to do this. And like, even if they wanted to type up an article, it would take them 2 full days to write 500 words, right? Like hunting and pecking on the keyboard and all that stuff. And that's when I discovered this mental block of creating content, right? Like these entrepreneurs are experts. So I said, you know what? It's been a month, and I asked him to write up something on the topic we decided, and he hasn't gotten to it. And I don't blame him, because he doesn't work on the computer at all day. He's very slow with it. It's a frustrating experience. So instead, I forget exactly what the topic was. Something around like the different way that sugar impacts your body and how it creates fat or something. I don't know. Not my area of expertise at all. But it was something that it was important to his clients who were like, high performing athletes. And so instead of assigning him to write this article, I just sent him an email with a subject line that said like, quick question about sugar. Hey, last week when we were talking, you mentioned how like sugar had some like weird thing I never heard of. And it like, it helps you out in certain areas if you need to work out a certain way, but it's bad if you combine it with something else. What was that about? Well, guess what I get in a half hour later? I get a 500-word email from him breaking it all down exactly what it should be, right? So when you start realizing that your marketing is just a conversation that you're having with your target audience, that mental block, when you knock that mental block down, it changes everything. Where it changes things from being something that piles up in your to-do list to just having coffee with someone you want to work with. And we do that same thing now today. We do it with video. So now when we do our onboarding calls with clients and we go through, all right, tell me about like the problems that you solve for people. And they go through it and blah, blah, blah. And then we're done. And guess what? They don't even have to do anything because I just edit the video that we just talked about and they had no problem with it, right? It's just how, when you make that shift from quote unquote marketing stuff to having a conversation with your ideal audience, it changes everything and it makes it so much easier. And that's why I say one of the programs that we offer, I like to say we help entrepreneurs attract clients with a system that feels like it's on autopilot, because all you're doing is hopping on the webcam and having a cup of coffee. Like imagine you're having one-on-one with someone who's a potential customer of yours and you're answering their questions. That's all you're doing. We just make that happen at scale.
Yeah. So I'm like sitting here forgetting that I'm actually hosting a podcast and just like taking in all of this content because it's so freaking powerful. But there's so many things that I love about what you said. And the biggest thing is the ability to pivot when you're working with your clients. Like cookie cutter approaches don't work in any business. Everybody's mind works differently. And I love what you talked about with being able to just say, okay, this isn't working. Let me just ask you this question. And then he sends back an answer. Like that's so amazing and innovative. And this is what's so important about, picking who you're working with to make sure that they're able to pivot. Because I feel like everybody goes through different stages in their business where they're like, okay, I'm going to write marketing content. And then, oh, I'm too busy. I can't do that right now, but I have to answer a question. So let me just answer this question. Right.
Yeah.
And then I also think we get in our own head so much where we're like, okay, this is marketing. Like this is going on my website. So it's got to sound official and I can't say that. And so you take all that pressure off and it's so amazing.
Yeah. And also understanding like the power of, like you said, the personality is what's going to make a difference. And when you realize it's okay to be a person, that's the other thing that we help companies with is being more human, where the first thing I do on the checklist when we work with someone is stop sending your emails from info@yourcompany.com and start sending them from Amber, right? And that makes a huge difference. I mean, there's, I have all the data on the performance and stuff, but the best part is that this approach to being human and showing your personality, it's easier to do, it's faster, and it actually performs better, right? So like you're actually getting better results from your marketing when you do this, and it's the easier way to go. And so once you can make that mental pivot to like, all right, I'm just going to have a conversation with my customers. And the way that I started doing it was I would get an email from a client or a prospect and they'd ask me something about, how can we get more people to share our Facebook post or something? Well, I could hit reply in my email and write it out to them, which is what I used to do. Or I could open up a doc, write it out, and publish that as a blog post on my website, and then share it on my social media and send it out as an email to my full list. And so now instead of just answering what I love creating leverageable assets for businesses, right? And usually you hear that term when it comes to finances, but not marketing. But think about this. I would have spent a half hour, 15 to 45 minutes replying to my client's email, and that would have helped them tremendously. Or I spent that same exact amount of time But instead of just sending it privately to one person in an email, I published it on my website and then I shared it on social. So now all of my Facebook friends, all of my LinkedIn connections, all of my Twitter followers, and look, I don't have hundreds of thousands. I have hundreds and thousands, not hundreds of thousands. But now all of a sudden they're seeing all that same thing and getting helpful information from me about Facebook marketing. And then, of course, when they start thinking about Facebook marketing, who are they going to come to? The person who shared some insightful stuff. And I just write it the same way I would have written the email. I write it as a conversation, right? Like I'm not making it any kind of formal thing. Like, sure, if you have to contribute to a formal publication and they have guidelines, yeah, you have to maybe do it there. But if you're publishing your own content, doing your own marketing, do it in a conversational way. People are going to read it more. It's going to flow better in their head. They're going to actually listen and understand. And like, if you can weave in examples and stories, like stories are what's going to grip them instead of some just dry bullet list of something, right? And so you went from having like a one-on-one email to something that's going to grow your business for years. Like if you publish this on your website, that lives there forever, right? Like I have blog posts that I wrote in 2012 that people find on Google every single day right now. And so what would have been a private email now all of a sudden is a marketing asset for me that's been working for almost 10 years.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I just need to put a check in the mail
Yeah.
for our nice little coaching session. Like anybody that's listening should just like write you a check right now. That's pure gold. And like, so my first interview that I did, I said mind blown when she said something. And like, seriously, like you just blew up my idea of marketing. Like it's completely changed. Like that's insane. Like seriously, so good. Let's shift gears just a little bit because I don't think there's anything else I can say on that topic that's better than what you just said. We're getting kind of close to the end of time and I could talk to you forever about this stuff, but I do want to bring in a success element. So I'm interested to know for you, what does success mean to you? And has that definition changed throughout your life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that you don't really think about defining as a kid or when you grow up, right? It's kind of like a gray thing you never articulate or crystallize. And then, you get to a point where, like I said, you graduate college, success means getting a job that gives you a paycheck so you can get an apartment and do stuff. And that happens relatively quickly in most cases. And then you start thinking about, well, what is success now? Is it the next career move, which maybe it is for some people, or is it having control of my own life? It's a weird balance of control and freedom, right? And so once you get that entrepreneurial itch and you taste it, that became what is success. And that was, okay, success for me from corporate was then I want to control my own schedule and have the freedom to do what I want when I want. And I want to be able to have the control to have more impact on people with the work that I'm doing. And so that became success. And then that evolved to, okay, now that's happening. Now success is, okay, how do I bring in enough clients that I can make enough money to hire people? Then you hit that. And then you get to a point where you're kind of relatively stable. And then you start thinking about, okay, well, now success is living in alignment with my intention. And that's where I'm kind of at today, is not letting, to me, success is having that control and living intentionally, where this is what I'm setting out to do on a big level and on a micro level, where in the morning, I actually just made my buddy at Your Daily Bread on Instagram is great. If you like memes that will hit you in the feels, check them out. But he posted something and it was a 2-part thing, and it says, here's my list of the top 3 things I need to accomplish today. I'll start by doing 20 different things that have nothing to do with that list.
Yes. Yes.
And so he ended up making that into a wallpaper for my phone for me, because I told him, I was like, man, that hits me so hard. And so that to me is success, is living with intention and alignment with what you're setting out to do. And that's a daily struggle for me. And I think a lot of people today, with like keeping up with your inbox and notifications. And if you're in the client services business, you do have to be available for clients. So how do you manage the client needs, plus grow your own business, plus live a life of freedom? And so for me right now, like that's kind of where I'm at, is like, am I living intentionally and aligned with my big picture goals and what needs to happen on a daily basis? Like, am I doing things that move me towards that? And it's the process that I look at as success.
I love it. I love it. So as we start to wrap up, I'd love to kind of wrap things up with one piece of advice that you wish that you could get out to new entrepreneurs in the world, like one thing that you wish new entrepreneurs knew.
For new entrepreneurs, I wish they knew that they could just share their passionate expertise and that can be their marketing.
Yes,
You know,
love that.
that's it, you know. And look, whether you love marketing or hate it, if you don't have marketing, you don't get clients, you don't have a business. And so it is, if you want to call it a necessary evil or something you love to do, you know, I would love nothing more than people to change that mindset from necessary evil to something they love to do, because all they're doing is talking about what they're passionate about.
Oh, I love it. So if somebody wants to reach out to you concerning marketing, concerning anything that you're working on, or just to connect, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram at Growth Suite is easiest way to spell, or you can find me on Facebook is a good place to connect. Let me know. My name's Todd Giannattasio. We can put that in the show notes here and link to it. But find me on there. Let me know that you heard me on Amber's show, and I'd love to connect and chat on anything I can help you with.
Awesome. Super excited to have you on the show. Before we finally wrap up, I'd love to do a quick random round, let everybody get to know you a little bit. You okay with
Let's
that?
do it. Yeah,
All
let's do it.
right. If you could time travel, where would you go and why?
Oh man, to 2019 and save and try to save everyone from this virus,
Right? Or not
um,
make some horrible meme about how 2020 is your year of vision.
yeah. But that aside, because that's the easy answer, I think I would probably go back to when I first started my journey and say, I think the most important thing is to be focused. There's a lot of things that can distract you, a lot of things that feel like they're important, but they're not. You know, do a good job, serve people, and stay focused on your main goal. You know, make them keep the main thing the main thing, and I think that's what I would probably do, is go back and tell myself that. Make sure you remove the noise as much as you can. Try to be self-aware on things that are distractions versus gaining traction, and focus there.
Love it. If you could do any profession other than what you're doing, what would you like to attempt?
Oh man. I love what I do so much. You know, this is a hard question for entrepreneurs, and it's actually, it would be interesting to hear what other people's answers are, because technically, if you don't answer with like what I'm doing now, well then go do it. You have
Yeah.
the control to do it, right? um Me, it's about, you know, coaching and teaching and helping people. So I don't know if that would be in a school, or in a different type of way, but definitely something where I'm teaching, helping, and helping other people grow. I think, you know, I like the idea of maybe being like a high performance mindset coach. Like that's something that's always kind of tickled me a little bit. Um, so I think maybe that would be something I'd explore.
Love it. Content, when you're consuming content, are you a physical book reader or have you moved on to audiobooks?
Um, I am physical book if and when I can. And even if I do get an audio book, I still buy the physical book because I like to have it in my hands, highlight it and stuff like that. But I do
You,
also always have my headphones in, listening to podcasts or audio books at as fast as they will play, and consuming as much as possible.
yeah, you're the second person to tell me that they listen to an audiobook and highlight a physical book at the same time. And I
Yeah.
tried that and I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like it's so fantastic. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
resources, do you have a book that you have recommended the most in the entrepreneurial space, or a book that you would recommend?
For sure. How to Win Friends and Influence People is
Yes.
something I always recommend. Oldie and goodie. I'm all about the old school fundamentals of everything. You know, how to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich are two of the most recommended that I give.
Yes. And then finally, my purely selfish question. I am a music nerd and I always have to know people's pump up songs. What do you listen to when you
Oh
just need to
man.
like switch your mood around?
Okay, so this is very random, and most like, if anyone has ever heard this before, let me know because it would be amazing. But I am very much, or was very much, into underground hip hop in the late 90s and early 2000s. Unfortunately, haven't kept up with that whole scene as I've become an adult and father. But there used to be a show called The Wake Up Show, and it was in California, and like you like really had to search the internet back then to get a hold of it. And it was where Sway and Tech started, and they had it's like an 8-minute freestyle with Dilated Peoples, Eminem, and I think one other person. and it's just everybody passing the mic back and forth and just flowing with like a really great instrumental going. And like, if I need to turn things around, like that's where I'll just like sit, put my headphones on, close my eyes, and just like vibe with that.
I love it. I love it. And what's so crazy about that is like seeing the amount of talent that people have, because I look at them when they're like just doing that on the fly. Like I know, people say Eminem and you think 8 Mile style, but those things exist all throughout the world. And they're so freaking talented. I'm like, it takes me so much time to figure out what I'm going to say. And here you are just like, it's so crazy. That's amazing. It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And one more time, what's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Best place that has everything, check out toddg.me. That will link you to all my socials and websites and different companies I have.
Perfect. Well, Todd, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the show. I hope that something that was said resonated with you or provided value to you in one way or another. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on the show. You can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram at Amber Furman. Also, I've created a Facebook community for followers of the show to interact with me and other members of the community. You can find that on Facebook at More Than Corporate. So go ahead and join that group if you'd like to stay up to date on podcast happenings and meet some really cool people. Again, thanks so much for tuning in.